Alright guys, so I'm going to be doing something slightly different today. I'm going to be going through the entire roster of characters and trying to explain how I think Hog matches up into them, right? So at the top, characters are problematic for Hog pretty much like just alone, right? Like these characters will make the game immediately more difficult, right? Um, Niche problem, right? Like usually alone they're not too much of an issue, but either they facilitate a certain gameplay style that's problematic, or with other characters, they become like exponentially more problematic, right? Neutral, right? Like if you see these people on the other team, it really doesn't make it too much of a difference either way, right? And obviously, like good and niche good are pretty much the opposite, right? Like good, it's like the Hog kind of like farms these characters, and niche good is like Hog has a lot of strengths in the matchup, but there's a lot of like outplay potential, right? Especially if like that character's not in a good um composition, right? So I'm considering mostly kind of how these characters interact 1v1 with Hog, right? In an actual team environment, right? Not like in the legitimate just one versus one deathmatch thing. Um, but I'm also considering kind of what teams like team styles they help facilitate, right? For like an obvious one, like Lucio's speed, right? Alone, like Lucio wouldn't be a problem, but like Lucio's speed's a problem, for example. Just getting that out of the way right now, right? But that's not necessarily going to be like the massive in how I rate these people, right? Because if that was the case, right, if speed was like something, right, I was just considering like the overall team style, like Rush, pretty much just like is a tier on its own problem wise for Hog, right? Like he just can't deal with Rush well at all. He just gets like no opportunities to get picks, especially in a coordinated environment, right? This is kind of like a general overview, probably like a good barometer for Masters plus. Um, Gameplay, assuming typical-ish levels of rank coordination, right? But definitely not like top 10 lobbies or anything, right? Like that, right? Where you're just gonna get like counter swapped and everyone and they're like stacking with their actual, I don't know, like scrim team or something, right? That's a whole different ballpark. Start. Bastion is going into, yeah. Bastion in my opinion is like really bad in the Hog. Um, Bastion's like damage fall off range in his standard form. I don't know what you want to call it. His just normal gun form is he can outrange Hog, right? He's like the 30-meter range, and he can like pretty reliably outrange Hog. The problem is like his damage in that mode is like not super problematic for Hog at all, right? And like Hog's teammates, right, can farm Bastion really easily if he decides to just sit around and poke at like that range because his hitbox is massive, right? And if Bastion moves close to like try to use his turret form against Hog, as Hog you should always be playing near cover, right? And Bastion gets like the movement speed penalty when he's in turret form, and he's just like overall a really easy like hook target, right? Like he's just probably the easiest hook target in the game realistically speaking. He has like pretty much no mobility. He's huge, and he has a movement speed penalty when he's in his like actually dangerous form. So he's like really easy to hook, right? You can either just LOS him, run away from him, especially right if you have your major perk, or like I said, LOS him, or you can even just hook him out of it if he overextends just a bit and just like insta kill him with your team, right? I think you still like two shot him, right? Just because if you hook him into your trap, you do so much burst damage to him, and you stop him from shooting for however long your hook duration stun is. Honestly, the most annoying thing in the Bastion matchup is just the nade bouncing around, but it's like on a long cooldown, so it's like not that much of a problem. Cass, I feel like it's pretty neutral. If he had his old range, I'd say he's not very good into Hog. The only thing like he has going for him right now is that he has a 25-meter range, so he can kind of play outside your range. The problem is it's like not necessarily conducive for him to do so on all maps, right? Um, yeah, so like it can kind of go either way, right? Playing into him. Really, the only thing you have to worry about is if he's just like hard focusing you and trying to farm you for headshots and be kind of problematic because he is probably the best, realistically speaking, like mid-range DPS of all DPS characters in the roster. If he's just like hitting nothing but headshots, right? But it's not going to be consistent. Um, obviously, you have to worry about him like fan the hammer rolling, fan the hammer close range, right? His ult's like not good into at all, right? You just hook him out of it if he tries to zone your team with it or try to pick anyone else out. You have such a huge HP pool that it actually takes him forever to actually be able to kill you with it. Yeah, so basically, like if you just keep him kind of at mid range, he's like not ever going to be too much of a problem. And you still can like tank a lot of his damage just with breather, right? And his cooldowns are kind of useless into you, right? Like roll is like pretty short range, easy to predict where he's gonna go. Locks him into like that animation, so he can't like input anything. So yeah, not too problematic. You just have to be careful because he can farm you. Diva, definitely a problem. You see a recurring theme with a lot of the tanks that like are good into Hog. They do a lot of damage mitigation and they have like a ton of armor, right? Like half of Diva's HP pool is armor. Her matrix lasts pretty much forever, right? And her boosters on a really short cooldown, right? So if she gets hooked, she could probably like tank literally everything except your initial burst of damage with her matrix and just fly away. It's basically like impossible to off-map kill her because her boosters are like on a 4-second cooldown or something, right? So she kind of has to like consistently get hooked over and over and over again and get shot by a ton of people if you hook her for her to actually like get hard punished consistently. It's really difficult to do so. The good thing in the matchup is her range is really bad. But if she's running like speed of any sort, like if she's played with the Juno, she can be really problematic because she can just ferry her entire team into you, right? And like hooking her is like almost always completely useless. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's like not very valuable because of those aforementioned reasons, right? Yeah, and she can like blow you up pretty easily, and your ult's also not very good against her, right? Like she has that really extensive matrix, as well as like boosters on a really short cooldown, right? So it's kind of a pain to play into her. I feel like ever since Zen got his rework, he's really not that problematic anymore. He still does a lot of damage. But like ever since the Discord rework, where you can't just spam Discord you, it's way easier to shake Discord and just like not make him too much of a factor anymore. Obviously, on certain maps and in certain comps, he can be like really difficult to get to, but he's also like a really big hitbox. So he's really easy to one shot, really easy to hook, and he's very easy for your like for good teammates that you want Hog to be run with. And when I say that, I'm talking about like characters like Soj, Tracer, Freya, Ashe, stuff along those lines, right? DPS wise, to just kind of like farm him, right? Or otherwise, just completely like punish him for peeking, or just bait his attention like consistently. His ult, it can be good at saving tanks, but you can like hook him off map when he ults, right? Or you can just push him away, or just hook him away from like whoever he's trying to heal, or hook people away from his heal, right? Or you can just like one shot certain characters inside of his ult because you do such an insane amount of like one shot burst damage, right? Yeah. Yeah, and his kick doesn't really get too much value against you because you're generally speaking both going to be playing pretty like pretty far away from each other, right? Obviously, you have to get closer than he does to you, but like it's never going to be within that like just in neutral like 5 meter whatever his kick distance is. Yeah, you just have to be careful about peeking the right clicks really, and just like be patient on Discord. And if he's not like hard stacking with a ton of annoying characters, he's like not too problematic. Baptiste, I'd say, is like not too great into Hog. He's kind of like Cass, or he has a 25-meter range, which can be sometimes kind of problematic, but also it can be like kind of difficult also for the player, the Baptiste player, to consistently like stay in that like 5-meter like Goldilocks zone that he has against you. That's like not very error proof, right? Whereas like Ashe, for example, has that 10-meter grace period. Yeah, Baptiste and Cass only have that 5-meter, which is like way easier to punish. And Baptiste cooldowns are like, because you force him to play so far away, his cooldowns like aren't too good at like saving his teammates if they get hooked, right? Lamp has an obvious travel time, right? And regen burst has like the range limitation, which makes it like not super good, right? Window also not super great against Hog. Again, you should always be playing near cover. He's really easy if he like solo windows himself to just hook out of it, right? And it's also worth mentioning, like if he lamps someone, you can just hook him out of lamp. And if he does lamp like one of your hooks, if you're playing positionally well, you probably have time just to shoot the like one shot the lamp and just continue shooting like whoever you hook afterwards, right? Because Healing does become increasingly more difficult to heal the further people are away from him, right? Obviously, depends on the character. But yeah, it just this kind of is how it is, right? You just kind of force him out of his comfort zone a lot of the times. And his damage isn't like super great against you, and his jump is like also not super great. It's very easy to hook Baptiste out of jump if you catch him ever in the air. Genji, I'd say overall neutral. He's one of those characters that like can kind of farm you if you don't have hook, and he plays around like 10 meters. But you can like really easily bait out his deflect, and that kind of like prevents him from going aggressive, right? He's one of those characters you can kind of just stare at sometimes, and they'll deflect, and you'll just like pretty much prevent them from being aggressive literally just by looking at them, right? That's a big strength Hog has. The problem is like Blade's a big problem, right? Because he can build Blade faster than you can build your ult, and your only opportunity against Blade is really to hook him and like one shot him, which is like almost impossible if he's nanoed. You use your ult to like push him away, which is like not consistent because your ult builds still pretty slowly, especially compared to like Nano and Blade. But he's like not like super dangerous for you in particular. It's just kind of more so your team, right? In a straight 1v1, I'd probably put him into like not so great into Hog, but like in the team environment, he's like pretty neutral. Hanzo, I'd say if he didn't have cooldowns, he'd be like really bad into Hog. But like his ult is also useless into Hog, right? And he kind of has a cast problem where his movement is like not good enough to actually be like problematic to reliably hit. His cooldowns are very annoying, right? Scatter arrow can just literally like almost insta kill you if you're not careful, or storm arrow or whatever it's called now. And Sonic kind of like messes you up big time because you completely lose your element of surprise. Yeah, I mean, if people know exactly where you're standing and exactly when you're going to peak, it's going to be like difficult to consistently hit like high ranked players. Because a lot of times you just don't have enough time to like throw people off, if that makes sense, right? If they know exactly when you're going to peak, right? Like there's no element of surprise, and it's going to be way more difficult to actually catch people off guard when they're rotating between like cover. His ult also kind of useless into you, right? And I would say Hanzo and like other sniper characters, because he's projectile, he can't just sit halfway across the map and just farm you or your team, which is why I say he's like not particularly good into Hog, especially without cooldowns, right? Junk, I'd say Hog is overall pretty good into him, right? Junk's only like good thing in the matchup is that he can just like spam you and like fling your camera all over the place, or even fling you all over the place to make it hard to aim. But he's a really easy like one-shot target, and he also is forced to play really quite close, or go for like these rollouts, high rank, right? And if you know what those rollouts are, you can just like catch them off guard, one shot them. He's like completely useless, right? He can sometimes spam you from cross map, but that's like a really bad way to play Junkrat if you want to consistently like get value, right? Because if that's gonna happen, he's like not putting any pressure on your backline, and you can just pretty easily dodge, even with your like large hitbox, just dodge the mines from distance, right? His trap, usually not too much of a problem. You can one-shot trap. And his ult, right, like, he can't kill you if it's just the ult itself. And you can use that to your advantage of just trying to shoot it down for your team. Yeah, just don't push when he ults, right? Other tanks have more of a problem with his ult, like Winston, for example, or like Sig, that can actually get one shot. Hog doesn't get one shot, right? You actually live with like 150 HP, even if you don't use your breather to tank damage, which is pretty comfortable if you're like not actively pushing the enemy team, right? Lucio, right? I'd say like in a not team environment, right? He's like whatever, kind of like Hog could be good into him because his damage is pretty low, right? But like in the strict team environment, he'd be like really problematic. So I'd say he's around here, right? He facilitates rush, which is like a big problem for Hog. His beat can save teammates, right? Right, if they get hooked or something, or just help them just like hard rush Hog. Fortunately for you, because your DPS is so high when you ult, he probably can't save his teammates most of the time if they're getting solo ulted, right? And he does it reactively. And his boop can be a problem, right? He can obviously, boop you around, mess up your aim, especially after you've landed a hook or something. But if you like read Lucio's movements pretty well, you can hook them off walls all the time and just like catch them off guard, because usually they're pretty safe, or they think they're pretty safe when they're like wall riding, right? Yeah, so this is kind of like a team thing, right? Like in a team environment, he's problematic, but like in a solo environment, it's kind of like whatever. Kiriko, kind of whatever, right? She's another character like Genji, where you can just like, or pretty much every character in neutral right now, you can actually just force out like some of their movement or defensive cooldowns just from staring at them, which is very valuable for you, right? Kiri is like a character that doesn't like heal bots super well. She's pretty easy to one shot, and like she doesn't do too much damage. So as long as you don't peek her when she right when you don't have hook or whatever, and just let her fling kunais into your head, she's not too problematic. But rush can be kind of a problem because obviously the granite increased movement speed can be kind of dangerous, and Suzu can also be a problem too, right? If she's Suzu's your hook target, they obviously live, take 0 damage. And sometimes, especially when like she Suzu's a tank, now you just have a full HP tank in front of your face, which can be kind of problematic, right? Um, Especially like in neutral when you don't have hook, you just have to be careful because because her hitbox is so small. She does way more damage to you than you do to her outside of like 5 meters, right? And that's kind of like the big problem in this matchup. But you're pretty good at like just forcing out her cooldowns, sometimes from literally just staring at her. Mei, before her perks, I'd say is probably not even like problematic for Hog, somewhere around here. But playing against Mei's, fortunately I haven't played against them much recently. But their perks are really, really annoying, right? Like you're just going to be perma CC the entire game against Mei. The slowdown perk, whatever on her icicles, is just like awful to play into, right? Not only are you gonna have like a hard time moving around the map, but every time you get hit, you're gonna like my aiming style. If she hits me, like my aim is just messed up. It's really annoying. Um, prior, right, to this recent like perk update or whenever she got like the slowdown perks, like not really a problem. You just had to watch out for wall, which was pretty easy unless she was like a speed comp, because like her wall range and your hook range are roughly the same, and like her DPS is pretty low where she's not gonna win 1v1, and she's another character like all these where you can just force out her like cooldowns by staring at her sometimes, right? You really just had to watch out for her ult because that's pretty much a guaranteed kill unless you have like a Weaver or Kiri on your team, or just play like um, exceptionally in a good spot, which isn't always possible in certain maps or in certain like timings. Yeah, but now she's a problem because you're just gonna be perma CC'd all game. It's kind of like playing like the previous Zen Discord, or it's just like really like awful to play into, really. Yeah, I don't want to say too much into that, right? I would say actually I should have mentioned for like Bastion, you might be thinking just play Bastion with a rush comp. The problem is like why would you ever pick Bastion over like some of the other characters I'm going to get to later, or like Mei, which just have way more value consistently in either rush or not rush, right? That's why I don't think Bastion's good into Hog at all. Farah, I say she's not too much of a problem for Hog. Her DPS is like not too great, and it's kind of like old Mei, or like sometimes she can be annoying with her boop, right? Like if you're not careful, she can like fling you off the map, right? Or boop you into her team. Um, but like really, you just have to watch out from getting insta-killed from her ult, and that's kind of like it, right? Like she's gonna farm you for ult, and maybe like if you're getting focus fired by everyone, right? Fire can be a problem, but that's the same with literally every character in the game. Um, and ever since her rework, they gave her more mobility. She's like not able to just sit outside your range at like the corner of the map and just like sitting there and just perma spam you, right? She's kind of forced to sit around or play close, I should say, and reposition much more, which is pretty much in your favor, as long as you're tracking her cooldowns and reading her movement. Um, Unfortunately, you can't really interact with her, with her without hook, but it's like not that much of an issue because like her damage, like I said, is like not great DPS wise, especially compared to other characters. So we're gonna get to later, you in particular. So yeah, she's not too much of a problem. Juno, again, she facilitates rushdown with like her speed ring, maybe not to the exact same extent as Lucio necessarily, but she also has like the added benefit of being able to like heal dump heal dump the enemy like tank, right, and just stay out of Hog's range, right? I think her heal is like 30 meters range, which is kind of like that starting to like be a problematic range for Hog because that's like 1.5 times her range, and it's like outside of the era of usual sorry, outside the range of usual air that people are going to be playing into, right? Just that additional 5 meters on top of the 25-meter range. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it. She can like heal dump tanks, which is problematic when they have a lot of armor and a lot of mitigation, because they can play super aggressive into you, especially with speed ring. Obviously, Juno is still pretty strong. Yeah, is what it is, right? Not too much to say. It's kind of like Lucio, where alone she's not a problem, right? But like the playstyle she facilitates is the problem. Reaper, I'd say I might come back to Reaper. I'm going to put him here for now. Alone, he's not a problem, right? Like, unless he's running an actual, like, rush comp, he's, like, not a problem at all. Because he can definitely struggle to close the distance, and he's, like, usually really bad in the characters that Hog's good with, right? Like, maybe he's okay against Tracer, but, like, snipers or, like, hit scans, right? Range hit scans can be, like, really hard for a Reaper to get on. And they can just always, like, pretty much two-tap him, right? Anyways, so... yeah, like he can kind of farm you, and you can't really kill him without your trap. I will say also with Mei, she's probably the hardest DPS to kill in the game single-handedly with your trap. Um, I'm sorry, even with your trap, she's like really still difficult to kill. Maybe it's a bit of inexperience on my part of knowing where to exactly aim, but she seems to have like the combination of HP and like the perfectly sized hitbox where she's like actually difficult to one shot. Reaper is pretty much the opposite, right? He's like probably the easiest character in the entire game to headshot that's not a tank. Yeah, it's no exception for you in your hook combo, right? And he's also another character that you can just force out Wraith just by looking at him, right? And that pretty much kills all of his uptime because now he can't close the distance at all if you just look at him sometimes, right? And if you keep Reaper at range, you're like, he's totally useless, right? If he can't teleport in your backline because he doesn't have Wraith, he's like totally useless because he can't even close the distance to get in range, like farm you and force your breather. I'll say like Reaper is never going to really kill you alone, but he's going to force you to reposition constantly, right? Ryan, I'd say, is not too great into Hog unless he's playing like a hard rush comp, and if that's the case, they're just better options, right? Yeah, you can just hook him out of pin. You can hook him out of fire strike. You just pretty much just can ult him for free, and you can just stay out of his hammer range and just either continuously shoot his shield or try to hook his backline over and over again, especially if you can just like go high ground and completely ignore him. And he's really only a problem on like really flat maps that are really close range, like Oasis or King's Row first, for example, where like you just don't have the time or the angles to like try to get past his shield and like actually contest point, right? That's kind of like the only time Brian's like good into you. And obviously Shatter against Hog and his team is kind of free because you don't have a shield to block it. But you can just position different in a different like area from your team, and as long as he can't like pin you off map, you're not gonna really die. And if he like shatters your team, you just hook him away and like keep shooting him, or just like ult him yourself and he'll just die. Yeah, not much more to say there, right? Yeah. Anna, I'd say, is a problem, right? Since her cooldowns are so long, I was actually considering putting her into this tier here. But since like her range is so long, right? I should clarify. I mean, her cooldown like timer so long, right? I think Nade and Sleep are both like 14ish seconds now. It's quite easy to like bait them out and try to go for plays in that like long time you have. Like you can throw 2 hooks in that time period, right? So it's not the end of the world. The problem is, one, if she hits you with one of those, right, and they're timed well, and a lot of Annas have this problem where they're just gonna fling them at you and not try to time them well at all. You just wait them out. But if she times them well, you're just gonna like insta die, right? Yeah. And 2, she can also just heal dump like whoever you're like, especially tanks you're like hooking, right? Which and sit across the map where she's really hard to hit for you and just be like a complete annoyance, right? I think she effectively has the highest single target healing in the game. Maybe Juno's is slightly higher, but Anna's cooldowns in like a ranked environment are much more problematic for you. And Nano's also a big problem, right? Like if you hook someone and they get nanoed, you probably could get like reverse team wiped, right? Depending on your team comp is or like what the exact situation is. Um, Yeah, so for those reasons, I'm gonna keep her in problematic. But really, if I had like another tier between here, she'd go here, right? I think other characters are like more of a problem because just forcing her to play like halfway across the map is valuable in and itself because that isolates her, which makes it easier for your teammates to like capitalize on that, right? And because you're so like liable to getting your cooldown spammed on by her, or sorry, you're so liable to get like all the Ana cooldowns spammed on you because like you're like, the most obvious recipient in the entire game for them, right? It's gonna give your team a lot of space as long as you don't troll most of the time, right? Hog, don't need to talk about that. Obviously, even whatever. Soldier, I'd say it's pretty neutral overall, right? Like he's never gonna burst you down, but he can put consistent damage pressure on you and just kind of stay out of your range. He's just honestly not very threatening. Like his ult kind of blows. And the thing is, like I would consider putting him here, but he can kind of stay away from you easily because he has good horizontal mobility or good enough to stay away from you, right? Generally speaking, with his sprint, and he has like decent sustain in his healing station. Um, and he's like some vertical mobility with his rocket jump or whatever, which kind of saves him from being like not so good in Dog. But like the character just isn't very good in my opinion. It's not really worth mentioning too much more on Soldier. Obviously, like if he ults, you can just hold breather in front of his face and just deny the entire thing. Yeah. Moira, super problematic for Hog. No, I'm obviously kidding. Probably the easiest character for Hog to deal with in the entire game, right? She's like pretty much everyone else here, or Reaper, where you can just like look at them and force out their cooldowns, and now they just can't do anything offensively anymore, right? Whereas like Cass can still, shoot from mid range or something, or same as Hanzo. Moira's like kill potential caps really really early, right? She like maxes out like 100 damage per second or something. I don't know exactly what it is, and that's with her like primary fire and her orb, right? Like that's not good at all. And you're like never gonna die to Moira, right? And if she doesn't have Fade to sustain herself, right? Because you can sometimes just like look at her and force it out. She's just gonna get killed by your team over and over again, even if you're not in position to hook her, right? Or at least, at the very least, be forced to play super passive and be unable to do anything, right? Yeah. So her ult obviously totally useless against you. Her damage, like she'll never realistically be able to kill you in game, right? Super low. Her like self sustain doesn't matter because you're pretty much either just one or two shotting her or just like not interacting with her at all. Um, and obviously like she has a 20-meter range, so she's forced to play near you, right? Like she has pretty much no option to like interact with you in some way or another, which puts her in danger because if she doesn't try to farm someone for damage, right, which means getting close to them, she's going to be like constantly low on resources and just not providing a distraction, which is like awful for Moira, right? Like her entire, I guess, niche is being valuable distraction, and she can't like realistically do that against Hog. It's very difficult for her, I should say. Sim, I'd say not too problematic for Hog, right? Um, really you just have to watch out in like a team environment for like 5-man TP bombs or something. But she's like easy to either like completely ignore or just like one shot her, right? Like her range is pretty bad, and especially with your new perk, you can just run away from her if her beam's ever high, right? And you can just buy in neutral to stay out of her range pretty easily, right? Like I'm almost never getting beamed by this character, partially because I never see Sim, right? And partially because I can just sit out of range. I don't even know what it is, like 15 meters or something, 10, 15 meters. It's I think it's actually 10 because I'm pretty sure it's shorter than Zarya, right? Like I don't even know, but it's just easy to stay out of her range, right? Her orbs like completely useless against you, right? They take forever to charge up and they do like 100 damage, like totally non-factor. Um, she can kind of harass your backline, but if she mistimes it, she just gets hooked out of her teleport and dies, right? Um, her wall can be a problem, obviously, right? And if you ult it, like you're just kind of AFK for 6, 7 seconds or whatever it is, to destroy it, right? Which is like not great. It's better just to not play into it and kite away. Really, the most annoying thing in Sim is her turrets. The slowdown is so annoying because if you peek a corner and like preemptively hook, and you just get hit by that turret, your movement speed's gimped, right? Um, yeah, and you might just miss because of that, right? And she can also sometimes like block your hook with her turrets, which is kind of crazy. it'll like destroy the turret and like cancel your hook. Kind of goofy, but yeah, I don't really have a problem. I'm almost tempted to put it into here, but just because she has the potential to like 5-man TP bomb you, kind of makes her more dangerous, right? Like, you just don't want to get 5-man rush this Hog as ever. I mean, it's the same as every tank, but Hog's is super vulnerable to it because like if he gets rushed, he's just gonna get stunned and insta die. ERA, her range is okay, but her damage is like low, right? I mean, there's not really too much to say about this character. She's kind of just a shoot bot. No real like super useful mobility, right? She's easy to one shot when you hook her. So her, and I say that because like her boop isn't like a factor, right? She doesn't want to be close in the first place, unlike Lucio, right? Where their boop is going to be more problematic. If Yari's close, she's just going to get run over, right? She's kind of like you in that regard, and she needs to play the slight fight slow and try to like slowly pump out damage or like look for picks in that regard. Pylon, you can just kill people through Pylon, right? It's pretty easy for you to destroy. Her ult, you can pretty much just ignore it, and then when it explodes, just hit your breather for like a second. You take like, I don't know, next to no damage. It's like a really bad Junkrat ult against you, right? Because you have a lot of time to react. So yeah, just don't stack with your team. Not really, again, not too much to say about this character. Torb, really the most problematic parts about Torb are his cooldowns, right? Base form Torb, he's kind of like Bastion, where he's really easy to hook. And in principle, Torb has like more or less infinite range. But without overload, his damage per second isn't like too outstanding. And yeah, he's pretty easy to like walk into if it's just him shooting you. Obviously, you just kind of have to be careful about overload. If he overloads, kind of like Bastion, just LOS him and just wait for him to like end it, right? Because his like impact on you is just way lower because his DPS like gets almost cut in half or something, right? It's crazy. His turret is also kind of annoying, right? A lot of times you can just put it out of your effective range and it takes like forever to kill it, especially if he's healing it. I think it's like literally impossible to kill. But at the same time, it's not gonna like actually kill you like 99% of the time, right? The DPS passive is annoying. His ult kind of like not so great against you, right? Obviously, when he ults, he has to be really careful because you hook him out of it and he can't shoot you back and he just dies for it. And you can also just walk through it a lot of times, right? His DPS is not super high, and you can also use it to charge like your own ult or your support's ult. Brig, yeah, not too much of a problem. Yeah, she just doesn't want to get close to you. It just can be kind of difficult to kill other supports through her. If she just continuously whip shots you, which is why I'm not putting her into like something Hog's good into. She can't really like consistently farm you like ever without you going for like these whip shots, and she has to respect your hook a lot because if she gets pulled in, she's probably just gonna immediately die. Her damage per second is not good enough, and her shield bash won't be enough to like save her consistently because it just doesn't get her out of range if she gets hooked in, right? And like shield bashing away from you is also very dangerous because it exposes part of her hitbox to get hooked, right? Her shield isn't like as big as Ryan's, for example, so it's quite easy to hook her pretty much kind of through her shield, but it's really to the side of her shield. Yeah, obviously be careful about her ult. The problem is for Brig is like you're going to be playing kind of far away from her unless you have an advantage to either walk on her or just like hook her away from her team, right? So she's not going to be able to like consistently stun you and get value out of her ult without like turbo feeding the vast majority of the time, which means like you'll take, I don't know, like the stun and 100 damage and then just like force her to hard shield bot for the rest of her ult, right? So obviously not a good trade for her. Tracer, I would put here, but I'm going to preemptively put her here due to the new damage change on her. It's just quite easy for Tracer to farm Hog because she can kind of take whatever angle she wants. And she can be like quite difficult to hook too. The problem for Tracer is like she'll never kill you, right? It's kind of like a weak Sojourn where she's going to be farming Pulse. And like kind of pestering you consistently, right? And using Pulse to try to kill your team the vast majority of the time. Kind of like her saving grace is she has a much easier time than Sojourn at taking any angle that she wants, right? But her like payoff is much less consistent and much less like threatening towards you in particular, right? I will say, if you poke her kind of like the 10-meter range, you can easily just force her to use all of her blinks, which is like good for you. Sometimes even if you stare at her, like a lot of other characters, right? You can just force out sometimes even a recall, which makes her like significantly worse at pressuring you or your team. But even just shooting her like once or twice with like your central projectiles will take her to like half health, which is like kind of dangerous for her, right? But overall, like she's not super good to shoot without hook. Widow, definitely a problem, right? She's just gonna sit outside your range forever, right? Uh, Walls definitely problematic for Hog, right? Like I said, element of surprise is gone. Like it's gonna be like much more hard, much more difficult to hit hooks, right? At least for me, right? And you can also just get stunned around a corner, or as you peek a corner, I should say, and just die for it. Other tanks can still push sometimes, like Sig, for example. Not too problematic a lot of times. Obviously, like Hog is not like the end of the world, but yeah, like it's a big problem because you can just sit outside your range and just one shot your entire team. Map willing, right? And she's like pretty much never any reason to get within your range in the first place. But I will say when you do find her in your range, like she's a really easy one shot target. Not much to say. She can sometimes just shoot you sometimes, and like the headshots hurt, and you can just like take an unexpected amount of damage. But it's kind of a waste of time for her to do that. Winston, the good thing about Winston for him is like he can ignore you pretty easily on certain maps, and the bubble obviously blocks your hook, and it takes you like all your ammo to destroy his bubble. Obviously in a 1v1. So if you like waste all your ammo shooting his bubble to try to break it, you're not going to have any by the time you actually are able to go for a hook, right? The good thing for you is that like his damage per second and his bursts are like pretty bad, so he gives you a lot of opportunities to hook his backline. Yeah, unlike some other dive tanks. So like his pressure isn't immediate, immediate. For example, like Doomfist or Diva, right? Like if you miss Diva, for example, she's just gonna fly into your team, like effectively one shot them. And if you do hook her, like nothing really happens. Winston, if you hook Winston, he either dies or you force out those cooldowns to keep him alive, right? Which means he's pretty much not doing anything for the next 12 seconds, which is like really bad for him, right? Obviously, Primal, not so great against you. You can just either farm your ult off of it, use your ult against him, throw him in a corner, just insta-kill him, or just hook him off your team, or like hook him if he's like trying to knock you off the cliff. Winston's another character like Moira, like realistically, he's never going to kill you. But I'm not going to put him into like this tier because it's very easy for Winston to just completely ignore you on so many maps, right? And it's just kind of up to you to try to hook his back line, which is much more difficult than hooking the tank. Zarya, I'm considering putting her into here, but certain comps, it can be problematic, right? Like Reaper, Zarya definitely can be problematic where Reaper almost front lines, right? And just forces you to run away much more earlier than you would. I'm considering putting Zarya into here because like you're just so, generally speaking, you have so much flexibility in the matchup. You can either just not shoot her at all and just like scare her into using bubbles, right? And just not shoot her, right? Until you have an opportunity to like hook her out of position and like blow her up. Or you can just blow up her shield, right? If you have like a spammy comp. Just shoot her shield, hook her into your team, and like she'll just get insta killed, right? She has like effectively no mobility, and her HP is really low. So if she ever gets hooked, she's just gonna die. Like probably even more consistently than Winston because she doesn't even have armor. She's very easy to kill even if she's down like one bubble, right? And obviously if you're running like snipers or something, you just don't even shoot her. Like hit scan, like literally don't even shoot her. When she uses bubble and just like stare at her, try to hook her backline, and she's gonna do like no damage all game and get no picks, right? And you definitely have enough HP and like breather to like survive through a lot of her damage, right? And your range is also longer than hers, right? When you have hook. But the problem is when you don't have hook, she's just way more consistent than you, which is why I don't want to put her into like not so great into hog, right? Pretty much the only reason she's just more consistent than you, and she can force you away if like you aren't playing the matchup correctly, or if like the team comps aren't in your favor in one way or another. I will say against Grav, you can push people away, right? If you're grabbed, you can ult her away because her range is limited and save yourself or your team. Or if she grabs your team, just hook her away and like try to kill her or something. Sombra, say definitely a problem, right? Like hack is pretty much functionally impossible for you to stop. And she gives her team walls, which is really annoying. I guess the good thing about the matchup is like her damage per second isn't like outstanding, and like she's pretty easy to catch compared to Tracer, right? And like you can scout for her when she's invis sometimes. But the problem is like your damage, or your rate of fire is just so low that it's kind of inconsistent. But it is worth mentioning that you can, because your spread's also pretty wide, right? She's like not a character alone, kind of like Zen, where like if they're running a lot of other stuff that can cancel your breathers, she's gonna be somewhat of a problem. But alone, I'd almost put her like into not so great. But like in an actual team environment, she can be really problematic, especially if they just like random swap off someone else onto Sombra and you're like not paying attention, because you'll just get randomly hacked, or you'd be safe from literally every other like stun or anti-heal in the game, right? And obviously Sombra, like you just don't see her until she hacks you and it's too late, right? EMP also a problem, right? Getting locked out of cooldowns as Hog is like really bad, which is why like I'm putting her here, because hack's definitely problematic for you, right? If you're ever caught away from cover. Orisa, yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on Orisa, right? She just has 3 cooldowns to block your hook, really. And she just has more consistent damage than you, and way, way better sustain than you do, right? She's like almost indestructible, and like you're almost the exact opposite. Yeah, I mean, not too much to say about that one. I would say the only good thing about the matchup is like, if she's just sitting in the open spamming you, she's going to be taking more damage from your teammates, hopefully, than she's dealing to you. And like your poke is better than hers, right? Like in actuality, because she pokes for like 2 seconds, does 200 damage or whatever it is. You poke for a second, you get a one shot, and you just instantly win the fight for your team. And you can just ignore her too, right? If she doesn't have javelin throw or whatever it's called, and she's just like kind of like playing too far away from you, where she can't easily push you, you can just consistently like hook her backline if she's not being threatening enough. She doesn't have any way else to save them, right? Doom, obviously Hog dumpsters him. No, not really. A lot of people think that. I kind of disagree. I'm almost tempted to put him here, right? If there's another tier, I'd put him with Zarya, right here. I'm just gonna say like most of the Dooms you fight against are probably gonna be like here, right? But like the better ones will be here, right? Because they can just kind of, when I say here, I mean like specifically between these two. Because like he's really easy to kill if he blows his cooldowns, but good Dooms aren't gonna blow their cooldowns across the map, right? And let themselves get hooked across the map and just die. He's just really mobile and does a ton of damage, right? Especially even to you. And like if you miss, he can just go on your backline like one shot one of your teammates, right? And you're very easy to charge punch off of. The good thing for you in the matchup is like he just has to, I guess, put in a lot more, I guess, like micro work than you do, which is like tiresome, right? That's kind of like that simple. Positionally, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the case, but he has to be very careful pretty much all the time, right? If you have hook online, because like if he gets hooked away from his team across the map, he's just gonna get insta killed. Kind of like Zarya. But I will say Doom has like the options to at least get away, as long as he's not just blowing his cooldowns for no reason, right? I will say your ult is also like useless in Doom. Actually, you know what? I am gonna add a row. Okay. I don't know what I just did. Yeah, so now that I'm mentioning it, yeah, I think this is like mostly good for Hog. I'm gonna put him and Zarya in here, right? I'm gonna put, I think this was the actually I'm gonna put Kiri here too. I think there's enough characters I feel like it's worth putting them in their own special tier. Yeah, just for those specific reasons, right? Your ult's just useless in the Doom like the vast majority of the time. He's always gonna have his ult against you, and he still has like 3 cooldowns that pretty much completely negate your ult. unless you have him like literally jammed in a tiny room, which like Doomfist doesn't want to be in against you in the first place, right? So yeah, not much more to say there. Ball, I'd say Hug is usually good in the ball. Um, yeah, I mean he's kind of like Doom, where he can like really easily ignore you, and kind of knock you around a lot of times, right? Like Doom can like farm damage on you really easily if you don't have Hook, whereas Ball can just like farm boops on you and be really annoying. Kind of like I don't have like another good. I guess Lucio's probably the closest comparison, right? Where you're just gonna get knocked around everywhere, but Ball's never gonna solo kill you realistically, right? He's kind of like Winston in that regard, and his burst damage isn't as good as Doom's or like Diva's. It's more in line with Winston's, so he can't like insta kill your backline the vast majority of the time, right? I will say like hooking Ball when he's like far away, rolling away is easier. It's easier than you probably expect, right? As long as you're like reading his movement, and that can just like completely kill his uptime, right? Because he has to roll around for health packs, and Ball can kind of like get away with uptime against a lot of other cons, right? And Hog limits that a lot. Because if you get too close, his hitbox is so big that you don't even need to hook him a lot of times. You can just shoot him and just like chunk out like huge portions of his HP. Hook him when he tries to run away, and either get the kill or just like force him just to blow all of his cooldowns to stay alive and just like sit out of the fight for like 10 seconds. Ash, I'd say is pretty neutral, right? She has the range on you, obviously, right? She has a 30-meter range. But her cooldowns are kind of garbage against you, right? Like Coach Gun is like really predictable, easy to hook out of. And she gets actively punished for shooting the tank, in my opinion, right? She has like that long reload mechanic, and her damage is like kind of like Pharah, which not super good. Um, I mean, it's decent enough if she's like shooting you with a lot of other people, but alone, like it's really easy just to like shrug off Ash's damage and like try to hook people. Compared to some other characters in the game. Yeah, obviously Bob, not too much of a factor. You can hook him off the map or just like 1v1 him, no problem, even without your support's attention. Really, the only problem with Ash is like if she's playing exceptionally well, it's like always rotating outside of your range. Like you'll never be able to touch her. That's not always possible given the map and the exact like situation in the game. Sig, I'd say goes here. Yeah, alone he's kind of like Sombra, where like I'd be like hesitant not to put them here. But since he's played with like hard poke comps, it can be hard for Hog to like take space because he just gets spammed out every time he tries to make a rotation without the shield, right? You're just gonna get a headshot farmed a lot of times and have a hard time creating space. In a 1v1, Sig is kind of like Zarya, where you have to be really careful because if he gets hooked across the map, he's probably dead. And if you get close to Sig, ever in any other circumstance, you're probably gonna win that exchange. As long as he doesn't have like max shield and all of his cooldowns, because like your damage per second close range is way higher than his, right? You can pretty much like 3-shot him. He obviously can't do the same to you, right? Flux is a big problem, which is another reason I'm not putting him here anymore, because you can't use your breather for damage reduction anymore. And if he plays well, you're not gonna realistically hook him out of it. If he plays reasonably well and uses shield or plays around cover, it's just not gonna happen the vast majority of the time. Echo, she can kind of like damage dump you. It's kind of that simple. I'm almost willing to put her into here, but I feel like she's just pretty good at damage dumping you and staying out of your range. The reason I don't want to put her in problematic is like she's not super damage dumping you, right? And her range is like not super great. So if you force her to just play away from like the front line, she's gonna have a really hard time assassinating your back line, right? And that's kind of like the same problem why I don't necessarily want to put Anna like at the top, right? I'm not ordering these in any particular order, obviously, but just forcing them to play away is already like good value because it makes their cooldowns harder to hit, and also makes it harder for them to like get consistent pick value in the case of Echo, right? Yeah, and she's another character we can just force her fly just by staring at her, right? Sojourn, definitely a big problem. She can farm you for rail and try to look to kill your backline. She can farm you and just shoot you over and over again and be problematic. And she also can just stay out of her range with her rail gun, right? You're easy enough to shoot with her primary fire, where, right, she doesn't really have to worry about like the spread or range or projectile time on her primary fire, right? Whatever SMG, whatever you want to call it, not that much of a problem for her. Disruptor shot, kind of annoying when she gets a sticky disruptor shot. It's like almost impossible to avoid. She gets another free rail. Yeah, and overclock, she can blow you up if you're not careful. The good thing in the matchup is like you're not forced to perma peak Soj, because like I said, similarly to Orisa, right? You don't need to perma peak people to get value in Hog. You just need to peak for a second. You know, hook someone and then pull them around cover and one shot them or something, right? Which will give Soj rail, but then you'll give Soj mostly rail, say, but then you'll get a pick and like have an advantage, right? Which is still in your team's favor, right? Because you actively have the pick and she still has to make something happen. Yeah, I mean, kind of that simple, right? Queen, definitely problematic, right? She can like damage dump you, probably almost the best compared to every other tank except maybe Malga. Knife's a problem, right? Pulls you out of position. She can pull you if you hook someone else and save her teammates, right? Which can sometimes be enough to actually help them get away, depending on the character, right? Her shout kind of facilitates her team to be able to run you over if you're too close, and her ult's obviously a problem, right? You can reactively, like, if you're playing far enough away from her, which you should be, you can hook her out of it sometimes reactively, and you can counter ult her to push her away sometimes. If you're healthy enough, you can just survive the anti in the first place. You know, as long as she doesn't have like an Ana or Sombra on her team to like pretty much double anti you. And she's also like Zarya, where she's pretty easy to kill if she's down her shout, right? If like you hook Queen away from her team into your trap and she doesn't have shout, she's probably the easiest tank in the entire game to kill, right? Because that's kind of it. Her self-sustain's not going to help her enough if she doesn't have move speed to like help her actually like dodge your shots. I'm thinking about renaming these. Yeah, let me rename these. Yeah, okay. Anyways, beside the point. Ramatra, another character I'd put probably here. He has a lot of armor when he's in Nemesis form, right? So you're like not going to be super great at killing him alone. But the good thing is you just turn him into a block bot. If you like pull him away from his team, when he at the later stages of his Nemesis, he just reverts to his Omnic form and he's like gets insta-killed, right? He's kind of like Queen or Zarya, where he doesn't have like these important cooldowns. He's just gonna get like almost one shot by you, especially if you pull him into trap. But he does have a shield, and his poke damage, especially with like his staff upgrade perk, I don't remember exactly what it's called, can be problematic for you. So really the key to this matchup, and also like that Vortex is also incredibly annoying for Hog, right? Like a lot of slowdowns, you'll see a recurring theme. Honestly, I'm gonna put Ramatra here due to his perks. Like he used to be probably around Ryan, but like his perks make him really annoying. Yeah, I mean, like the slowdown perks is just actually incredibly annoying. Specifically, the one where like it explodes, and just stuns you for a second is like incredibly annoying. I hate playing that stuff. Kind of ironic, isn't it? But he can hit you around cover and stuff, which is why I don't like it. And it's lingering too. But it's still kind of ironic. But whatever. Yeah, you just can turn him into a block bot, and as long as you try not to engage into his shield, it can be like easy to ignore him and hook his backline, or just kind of like hard focus him. The problem is when you hard focus him, like he can still like try to split you from your team, and that's like a problem, right? Because he's just more consistent at running over your backline. You'll notice like Doom. I don't want to put Doom into this tier because like he can just like wipe your team fast and you can like kill his team, right? It's kind of the same as Ramatra. He's just gonna be able to wipe your team before you can kill his team, right? Just because they have like better uptime and like in principle or at their peak than you do, right? Like you have to hit every hook, and that comes up every 6 seconds no matter what, right? And they can't have any cooldowns, like pull people away or save them. Whereas like Doom or Ramatra, right, when they're in range, Ramatra is just gonna run over your team kind of no matter what, unless they have speed. Or Doom is just gonna like farm punch over and over again. He gets ult super fast and like one shot your entire team. Yeah, obviously hard to do, but it's possible. Malga, kind of similar to Orisa, kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum. He's just gonna sit main, damage jump you. In a ladder environment, I almost want to put him here. But like when he's with any sort of rush comp, he's just gonna run into you with his charge. not give you an opportunity to hook his back line. And if you try to hook him, obviously his charge blocks your hook, right? And just like sit in your face, hit E, and just like force you away or just kill you, right? I mean, it's kind of that simple. In a ladder environment, when they're just running random stuff and it's not super coordinated, he's here because he's pretty easy to hook. And if you just LOS his shout, whatever it's called, his cardiac arrest, I'll call it. Yeah, he just kind of doesn't do anything. He just gets blown up by your team. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave him here because he can still be problematic even there. Weaver, I'd say goes here. Yeah, Grip is a really annoying ability to play into, right? If he's playing with a tank that just wants to run into your face, he just lets him play super aggressively and get away with a ton, right? You could be saying Grip's on an 18-second cooldown. Yeah, the problem is, like, it's on 8 or 17, whatever it is exactly. It's on that cooldown, but you also have to also consider the fact that the ability is, like, impossible to mess up. And you're also having a tank that's, like, super aggressive into you, like, I don't know, Narisa, that's also cycling their cooldowns, which functionally makes him impossible to make any ground on anyone, especially the tank, right? Because the tank's in your face, just playing super aggressively, right? If you try to hook anyone else, right, they just get pulled, and the tank's still in your face, playing very aggressively, right? If you try to hook the tank, literally nothing happens, right? So you're sometimes just forced to hard focus the Weaver. But that's only in specific comps, right? Anna Weaver, in my opinion, is the worst comp to play or hog into, like in a ranked environment, right? It's like impossible to ever get enough cooldowns out to, I should say, worst support comp. I don't know if I said that. Yeah, in the ranked environment, just because they have so many cooldowns, they can like deny your value, kind of, right? In an actual like scrim environment, the worst would probably be something like, I don't know, Anna Juno or something like that, where it's just like they just run you over, spam all their cooldowns on you, and you just die. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I'm not entirely sold on that, but something like that, right? But Anna Weaver is just like, yeah, it's definitely worse than Anna Zen, right? Anna Zen's also way easier to farm, right? Like, if you have a Tracer on your team against Anna Zen, like, they're just never going to be able to, like, consistently pressure you because the Tracer's going to be constantly harassing them. They don't even need to, like, get picks on the Anna Zen. They just literally need to harass them and, like, force them to, like, be really careful with their cooldowns and attention. Venture, awful. Just kidding. Yeah, Venture is kind of like Moira, where Venture's never going to kill you, realistically. Similar to Sim, like the most annoying thing is just like the random slowdowns. In the case of Venture, it's the boop. If Venture, I don't even know what the cooldowns use, like the drill dash or whatever. It's really annoying to get booped. Venture can save their teammates, right? But that's kind of it. Venture's never going to kill you. They don't have enough ammo. I would say also Venture gets like the added bonus just for spamming their cooldowns, the added health, right? So they can be difficult to one-shot without trap. The problem is, even if you hook them without trap and don't get the kill, they're forced to use their cooldowns to live and do nothing to your backline. And they'll do zero damage to you even if they decide to like engage on you, right? Venture ult basically useless against you. They can get hooked out of it really easily and just get one shot. Yeah, and what else to say here? I mean, there's really not much to say, right? It's kind of that simple. Oh, I would say, yeah, you can also just hook Venture out of their like pop-up animation. If you get the timing down, there's literally nothing they can do about it, right? They just get killed if they pop up in front of your face. Hazard, he's awful to play into. He takes 0 damage, like, ever. He's a ton of armor. He is like an infinite block, kind of like D.Va, right? I swear to God, these characters both never run out of resources in their block. The thing about Hazard is that like he kind of trades D.Va's better burst up close for like better mid-range damage against you, right? And like better resource trades overall, I'd say, because like at least with D.Va, when you force out her matrix, she can't do damage. Whereas Hazard, I'm pretty sure it does more damage to you than you do vice versa if he just blocks in your face, right? Obviously, like in a 1v1, not a problem, but like when in an actual game environment, it's really annoying. If you don't have other teammates that can help you blow him up. He also has a decent amount of mobility, right? And he also has 2 boops for some reason. So if he just hard focus you, it can be like incredibly difficult to do anything if you let him get too close to this team. And if you don't hard focus him, if you don't hard focus him, he's just gonna boop you all over the place, right? Make it impossible for you to land hooks or get picks on hooks, right? Or just force you to run away with breather. If you do focus him, like nothing happens, right? unless you have a team that can also like help blow you up, right? I would say like his ult also free against Hog and his team, right? And unlike Ryan, like you can't just like play cover well and ignore it. Unfortunately, it just goes through walls for some reason, right? I really feel like Hazard's still completely over kitted or over tuned or overstated in some way or another. Um, yeah, I really feel like this character still needs nerfs. This a little a bit out of the scope of this discussion here, but he's kind of a pain to play Hog into, or sorry, a pain for Hog to play into. I could see in the future if he gets like some number readjustments. Like I feel like when he first came out, he was kind of like here, right? Maybe here-ish, but like his numbers are just like pretty insane right now. He just has a lot going for him. Mercy, I say she's here, right? Hog's a character that's easy to farm. Where if you don't have like a server admin like Hitscan, right? I wouldn't even say like server admin Pharah or like Echo, because they're just way easier to force cooldowns out of on Hog, right? But as long as they don't have like a server admin like Hitscan, like Sojourn or Cass or Ash, right? Or Widow too, I guess, right? Whatever. You'd be better off just swapping to a character that provides more immediate utility on Mercy, right? Like Mercy can be pretty easy to hook out of the air. She obviously does no offensive utility herself, right? So she can't like speed her team into you. She can't like help them with their mistakes, right? With like Weaver or Ana, right? They just like or Juno, they just heal dump them or pull them or something like that. Yeah, I mean it's kind of that simple. In res, usually you can cancel res, obviously if you just hit the hook, or if she's resing, you can just hard push someone else and try to hook someone else and kill them instead, right? Yeah, I mean the character has a lot of problems in general, but like, yeah, into Hog, like she's really not good unless she is pretty much a server admin hit scan. Freya, I'm just gonna put this here for consistency's sake. I mean, not much to say there. Obviously neutral. Freya, she's kind of like, Freya, Sojourn, and Tracer all put into one. Wait, did I say Freya, Sojourn, and Tracer? I meant to say Pharah, Tracer, and Sojourn put all into one. She's not quite that insane with the extended cooldowns now. But yeah, she can just kind of like damage dump you. Right? It's a bit more difficult now with the extended cooldowns, right? But the problem is she can sit outside your range pretty easily and just dump a ton of damage into you, and you really can't do anything about it if you're looking to push, right? Her ult, fortunately, is basically totally useless against you, right? Like the half-second stun can sometimes get you in a bad spot, but if you're playing your cover, like it's not a factor. And you can catch her in like when she uses her updraft, I think it's called. I don't really even know. Pretty easily because it's pretty like locked in, right? Like the movement's predictable. Yeah, like she can just like farm you really easily. She can kill your team really easily, kind of like Widow. Maybe obviously not as easy as Widow. Maybe more in line than Sojourn, right? Probably not even as easily as Sojourn all the time, but like she still has a lot of mobility, hard for you to deal with. But at the very least, you can just look at her sometimes and force out a lot of cooldowns, and you still force her to play like halfway across the map. That's always like the saving grace of Hog. You always force like the people that play well into you, that usually like to play halfway across the map, so they have a hard time engaging with you, right? Like the only exception you can say, like the only exception here where this doesn't really work super well out of like all these characters is like characters that have no choice but to get close, right? And they're not super great into you, or like May, right? And May is literally just because their perks are just ridiculous against Hog in particular. But I think they probably need to be looked at in general. Yeah. Okay, yeah, and I think that probably just about wraps this up. So just go over this again, right? No particular order within the tiers. Pretty much descending order, right? These characters Hog doesn't play super well into, and these characters I'd say Hog plays overall fairly well into, right? This is supposed to be used as like, oh, I'm playing Hog, right? I'm trying to OTP or like main Hog, and oh my god, they swap Ana, time to swap off Hog, right? This is more so like, or they're running Bastion, I gotta swap into Hog, right? There's obviously a lot of nuance. I think I went over that, right? Like some characters are there, like these two in particular, because of what they help facilitate, right? Some characters are just in general like really problematic for Hog in 1v1s, right? and specifically like resource trades. Um, yeah, and like this should be used like if they start making a lot of swaps, like if they're starting on characters like roughly around here and they start making a lot of swaps like up here, maybe consider swapping, especially if your team lineup is like not good, right? Like if you have a Kiri, and they swap like Anna, for example, like that's not really a problem most of the time, right? Or if you just play cover well and you play against Anna, not gonna be a problem most of the time, right? Um, but if you're like on a really bad team comp, right, and they just start making a lot of swaps that are up here, right, maybe consider swapping. But if the map isn't like bad, I don't really think Hog has like any like outstanding maps, right? You know, like Gibraltar is like the quintessential Winston map, for example. Hog doesn't really have a map like that. He just kind of has maps that he's like decent to good on, and then like some maps that like, he's pretty bad on. So just keep that in mind. Like if you're playing on King's Row and they just run it like swap to a rush comp, maybe consider swapping. But if they like swap to a rush comp on like Coliseum, you have a lot more like leeway to play around that, right? Anyways, I hope someone finds this interesting or useful. And I think I'm gonna make like an overall, just like mega hog playlist on my channel, just so people can like get good value out of like an all-in-one like resource for the character, right? Because there's really nothing like this on YouTube otherwise, right? Obviously, I'd imagine some people are going to disagree with some placements, right? And this is more so like a ranked experience. So specifically, this was like Masters Plus. You know, I was a GM player, so and some characters are obviously more common than others, like GM, right? Like Anna, for example. No one plays Moira. No one really plays Mercy. And I say that because like Sim, maybe like people that play if Sim gets popular, she's gonna be more problematic because they're gonna just like 5-man rush you. But as of now, like she's just not common, so I can't really say like that's particularly relevant. Um, and obviously lower ranks, right? If you're not super good at Hog, maybe Bastion would be like up here, but like I don't have problems with him in particular. He's also like exceptionally rare. Yeah, just keep that in mind, right? This is supposed to be like Masters Plus kind of level stuff, right? But people are generally using their cooldowns decently, right? In lower ranks, you know, might not quite look like this, right? I have a feeling everyone's gonna be kind of scrunched towards the middle overall, depending on your exact play style and your exact problems, and of course the exact problems and play style of your opponents, right? So, hope someone finds this helpful or useful.